Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Bear Guys and 2T Fitness.
Everything sequel contains explicit language. And why the fudge not, you melon farmer?
Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel Podcast. This is a Friday the 13th edition. Today we're talking Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man trying to destroy me with his brain, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hi, Tom.
Bad News Cruise. A lot of the
what
movie...
a treat to see one Terry Kaiser back in our lives.
Oh man, well, I might as well let the cat out of the bag at this moment.
That's your performance.
I honestly, you've talked before about seeing performances in movies and if you didn't know they were actors, you would assume they were just playing the people they were in the movie. And if I didn't know of Terry Kaiser, I would naturally
as a known actor.
Yeah, I would naturally assume that they hired a psychiatrist.
A dirtbag.
Yeah, a psychiatrist who was undergoing a malpractice suit and needed some money on the side and got into acting. It's almost too convincing a performance.
Agreed.
Because the people around him aren't putting in the same effort.
Yes, agreed.
So there's a great imbalance in his scenes between a man who's so committed you believe everything, and then actors who are not really selling the same intentionality.
Yeah, it's one of the things I noticed about this movie is you have somebody great like Terry Kaiser. This is one of the first times really in the whole series where, despite the fact that I like this movie, I'm not sure how much I love, what's her name? Lar Park Lincoln.
She is not
as Tina.
I've never seen her anything else on the basis of this film. She is not a good actress.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, and it's interesting. It's interesting when you see the actors in the movies and then you see their talking heads in Crystal Lake Memories.
Yeah. Because
sometimes you can form an attachment to that rather than their appearance in the movie. And I remember forming an attachment to her being interviewed. That when going back to the movie, I realized, oh no, I don't like her in this movie. I just like what she says about filming
the movie. Yeah.
Crystal Lake Memories. So it's deceptive in that way, but. Yeah, it's not a good lead performance, and overall, I think even though we've got the same archetypes of the kind of youth cast in this movie, the actors feel far too either and or miscast and glamorous for the roles that they're playing.
Yeah, I might agree with that. I think I know what you're saying, but, God, I'd have to look it up. Which character is the bitch?
Oh, yeah, yes, I know who you mean. Lisa? I want to say Lisa is the name of the character.
Okay, because there's a Sandra, there's a Jane.
No, Tina is the lead.
Tina's the lead.
Maybe it is Sandra. I think it is Sandra.
Okay. I like her.
Yes.
She's the one where I thought to myself, oh, well, now she's a good actor. I wonder what she would have been as Tina.
That's exactly it. I feel like the casting is correct. It's just everyone needs to step over to the left.
Right.
Like take one step to the right, and now you are this character, and then everything will be fine. The thing
That's
that
great.
really the kind of egregious piece of miscasting I noticed was the guy they get to play the stoner, who looks like he's never seen a drug in his life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't need to go full Friday 3 Cheech and Chong, but there's got to be
correct.
some semblance of believability that this person has taken a drug in their life, and I just didn't get that from that guy at all.
Yeah.
Also, the guy who plays Nick, who is the sort of nominal love interest in the movie.
Well, the one thing I noticed about him is he's done about 450 episodes of Days of Our Lives.
Oh, really? Interesting. Because that goes to my theory that about 3/4 of the way through the movie, Tina speculates that he might be an illusion, someone like an imaginary boyfriend. And I was like, if that was the twist, I think it would make more sense if Nick turned out to be the illusion that Tina
Correct.
temporarily suspects he is. That would make more sense for his performance.
Oh, that's why I didn't write her down, because she doesn't even have a picture on IMDb, but it's Susan Jennifer Sullivan, and she was Melissa.
Melissa. Oh, so Lisa wasn't too far off.
Yeah.
There was a Lisa in her name. It just wasn't her name.
It was one of those intelligence quizzes. What name do you see? What other name do you see within Melissa?
Exactly. Yeah, she's really good. I mean, there's an overall sense of the movie doesn't quite know what to do with these characters. Or
Yes. It's not as sure-handed as a Friday the 13th Part 4, right?
Right. It doesn't introduce them well.
You're right, correct.
It kind of relies on the archetypes that we've seen before, but kind of doesn't play with them as well as a Friday 4 or a Friday 6 or a Friday 2.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that problem, but I feel like the movie has other pleasures beyond that.
Yeah.
But I feel like interestingly the sort of the Friday the 13th-ness feels kind of taken as read a little bit in this movie.
And then
taken for granted.
Added to that, this movie and the next movie have characters where my note was, is that supposed to be us? Because they're like heavily into film. One of them's got a camcorder all over the place,
Well, this really takes off this kind of meta quality of trying to represent the people making the movie and the fans of the movie in the movie.
Right.
This kind of takes off in a big way where you get one sort of kind of one conspicuous nerd per movie from this point onwards.
Right.
So, and we have seen this before, and that is an archetype. We have seen this before. Tommy Jarvis essentially is that when we're first introduced to him. There's the guy watching silent porn in 4.
Correct.
That feels like those feel like film cans that someone working on the movie had in their basement. That was like just waiting for an opportunity to throw into the movie. So it's definitely been there before, but they glom onto it in new ways, and I think that's the case for like all the archetypes. This is where they start to kind of really get set in stone in a way they haven't been before. We've always had a little bit of a play with the stereotype
within, yes, and the actors are somehow, in previous incarnations, the actors are left room to play within the archetypes to make us connect to them more as an audience.
Mm-hmm. Or to challenge some of the preconceptions of that archetype,
right?
And that just literally goes out of the window because this series can essentially be boiled down to people either smashing into or smashing out of windows.
It is Friday the 13th movie after all.
Imagine a supercut of like people going in and out of windows in Friday the 13th. It would last about a movie, I think. I think it would be a good hour and a half.
Yeah.
So,
but that was one of the reasons that this movie raised up in my estimation so much was
good
that
it's work?
It's got good window work. We got women being thrown out of windows. We've got Jason smashing into windows.
That's where it feels
in a classic end of the movie Jason way too.
Right, yeah. When it leans into the sort of the tropes of the series, it does them really well, and I think it helps that you have a director who is a practical effects person in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Although, again, you go to Crystal Lake Memories, and there does seem to be some ineptitude there that you wouldn't necessarily expect from such experienced people when it comes to, for instance, pyrotechnics. We'll talk about that later. But
Right.
maybe that was it. I think they do admit that they hadn't worked with that level of pyrotechnics before, and it really shows.
I think it's a standout moment for the film, though.
Oh, I mean,
No matter how many lives were put in danger.
yeah, and of course there was a possibility that they weren't going to get it on camera, but we'll talk about that when we get there deeper into the movie.
Yeah. All right. As you said, Pyrotechnic Effects Man directed this. Well, first of all, 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is pretty high, I'll tell you, for the back half of this series.
It is, and I would say for a Friday the 13th movie overall, that is surprising. There's some rediscovery of this movie, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah. Budget of $2.8 million, opening weekend of $8.2 in the USA and the world, $19.1 million. And then, as previously discussed, it's one John Carl, I'm going to say Buechler?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, good.
I don't dispute that.
Who has kind of, sort of, has a connection to our previous lives on this podcast. He did direct a movie called The Dungeon Master, but he directed the original Troll.
Yeah, which we'll get to one day.
That became Troll 2, that had nothing to do with his movie Troll.
In that it didn't have a troll.
But then on top of that, he'll be in our lives again because he directed Ghoulies Go to College.
Ghoulies Go to College early?
Which is
it's so funny.
Fantastic title and idea.
I love the fact that on our ranking episode you mentioned he's done one of the Ghoulie series. You were totally holding back the reveal of the title there for this episode. I see what you did there.
Yeah, fantastic.
Ghoulies Go to College. Well, do you happen to know which installment
number
that is?
No.
My
guess off the top of my head was 4. That was my guess. Was off the top of my head. My guess was 4.
4 or 5 would have been my guesses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, my first note is that we have a new logo. Who dis?
Yeah, the later 80s Paramount logo, which is really looking ahead to the graphics of the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
It does. I would have, if you'd have shown me that out of context, I would have said that was early 90s, not late 80s. But, the ominous music and the titles say the same.
True. Plus, Crazy Ralph, Walt Gorney himself, doing the voiceover.
Well, I didn't look that up, but this is my exact note. Not sure who this voice is, but it's a Crazy Ralph type. And apparently that was more accurate than I gave it credit for, because there's
well done, sir.
Crazy Ralph. But I was, that makes total sense, and it kind of feels like, for a second I thought I'd accidentally clicked on the trailer for the movie. Because that's what it feels like with because he, that sort of, that voiceover narration, the way that it's kind of the I don't know what you call it, recap montage / end of movie.
So you get you get a recap of both the series and 6.
And the end of 6.
Which is it's not like it lasts a huge amount of time, but for a movie that's an hour and 28 minutes with a few minutes of credits and this, we're really whittling down to less story.
That's right. But it's interesting that, going back to to last year and our discussion of the front half of the series, all the mythology comes from Jason Lives.
Mm-hmm.
That movie did all the heavy lifting
for everybody else, yeah.
It's incredible. I mean, what it does for the as a launch pad for this movie is remarkable.
Correct.
I think so,
I mean, in that montage, the blowing up of the headstone followed by him reanimated.
Yeah.
That gets heavy coverage.
It's kind of like, but it kind of doesn't, this sequence doesn't know what it wants to do, whether it wants to be that sort of end chunk recap that leads in from the end of the last movie to the beginning of this one, or to go full Superman 2 boy penis montage.
I was thinking the same thing.
And
well, it to me
kind of goes between the two.
Yeah, to me, it seems as though they said, well, let's do what Superman did. Let's do Little Boy Penis.
Yeah.
And they were like, yes, that's a great idea, forgetting that there were 5 movies.
And then realizing as they go that that's too much to
or
summarize.
at 6, actually, because they include stuff from the originals. So,
But essentially, I mean, all that matters is that we get Jason to the bottom. For this movie, is that we get Jason at the bottom of the lake.
Right.
So this idea of a series recap or a kind of serial cliffhanger recap.
Yeah, and
it's sort of it's redundant because we just need to get him to the bottom of that lake.
What I like, and we'll get to this idea, I guess, when we talk about the next film, but apparently water is some sort of anesthesia to Jason.
Oh, okay.
So long as you get him underneath that water, he'll go to sleep.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, this is where I think in terms of the mythology of Jason, this is where it gets difficult. I mean, he was put in as far as the last movie goes, he was put there by a spell, right? An occult spell is what's keeping him at the bottom of the lake.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that spell can be broken by
telekinesis
in the local area, shall we say? Yeah. So,
well, before we get there, let's talk. I mean, we have those sort of white font credits. I think the music, like you said, is good in these opening credits.
I didn't say it was good. I said it was ominous.
Oh, I like it.
So, well, first, because we get the title image first, which is kind of
with the
light
animated
through
mask,
the holes in the hockey mask.
In the hockey mask, and then it splits.
Which I think is great, but then it's ruined by some very cheap looking lightning graphics. Like, it starts off really strong, and then it kind of undoes itself with cheapness, which is kind of the way that this movie goes all together. Like, it's always one step too far.
And also the splitting of the mask, I'm realizing just now, is sort of a tip of the hat to what's going to happen later.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, with the La Park, when you see La Park Lincoln, you're like, is that a person or a dealership? What are we talking about here? You see Terry Kaiser's name. And then, and this is... So this is where I wanted to begin. I don't think we'll stop talking about him for a while. Kane Hodder as Jason. This is his.
He's going to be in our lives for a while.
Yeah, this is his first. This is his first movie as Jason.
Yeah,
and yet he's singled out in the titles.
Mm-hmm.
As if that's supposed to mean something to us.
Yeah.
Like, what's his pre-existing reputation that would make you go, "Ooh, Kane Hodder"?
Yeah, he's just a stuntman.
Well, on that note...
And by that, I just mean he's not a known entity to...
No.
Even film fans.
But he is going to turn out to be...
Yeah.
The first actor to play Jason consecutively and continuously.
Correct.
Through a series of movies. So it gives me the sense that they knew that then, which sounds like the kind of foresight you don't expect from someone making a... Friday the 13th movie. Yeah. It's like, well, this is our Jason for the next 3 or 4 movies. You would imagine they didn't even know they had 3 or more movies left in the franchise at that point. But anyway, it seems like they're putting a lot of their chips on Kane Hodder, which I would argue is misguided, because if there's an actor I want to see return least as Jason, it would be Kane Hodder.
So I had that question for you because Kane Hodder is going to be in, almost all of these movies that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And
all but Freddy versus Jason, I think.
All but Freddy versus Jason. And before that, you have this hodgepodge of different actors.
I love the hodgepodge.
Sometimes even in the same movie.
Oh, yeah.
Different
I love
actors.
Yeah.
The series seems to take on Kane Hodder as though he is the most important thing that's ever happened to Friday the 13th. When you watch Camp Crystal Lake Memories, I think maybe Kane Hodder thinks he's the most important thing that ever happened.
He's absolutely insufferable. I'm glad you picked up on that as well.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
And the one main point, I don't remember his name, but whoever the gentleman was that played Jason in the remake that we covered on the Patreon.
Oh, Derek Mears.
Yes, Mears. So he is living proof that you can be a decent person and you can still play Jason Voorhees. And you don't have to go method and actually potentially hurt people, or at the very least try to intimidate them off screen.
You see, it's funny because even behind the mask, you can tell he's not a good actor. Because he comes into this movie hot, overdoing the head movements. This is more head movement we've ever seen from Jason before. It's like every time he comes into a room, the tone is the same. It's like, hey, what's going on over here? What's going on over here? Every single time. And of course, we'll get to it.
Heavy breathing.
Everything short in this movie of a head tilt, and eventually we do get one. But
we get a Michael Myers head tilt.
You can tell that's what he wants to do the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is, obviously it's been parodied and commented on that Jason, even before this, is far bigger and bulkier than he should be as a frog boy who died in a lake.
Yes, correct.
Stranded lake. But Kane Hodder takes it to a new level where he's like, we've never had wrestler big before. We've never had complete meathead Jason before. And there's no attempts to kind of dial that down or counter it in performance.
Tom, I'm just going to say, maybe be careful. I don't know if you want to make a new enemy.
Well,
he doesn't seem like the person that would take it well. Be careful.
But I also know that, I know how to get him. I just, bring a lighter and show him some fire and he'll...
Oh, that's just downright mean.
It is.
For those that don't know, a stunt did go wrong and he did receive burns on his body.
That's right, yeah. But my operational theory is that he did that on purpose just so he'd have an anecdote to tell about himself and how brave he is.
All day, every day?
All day, every day, yeah. But anyway, no, that is unnecessarily mean. But I think he's basically, what I'm saying is he's all wrong. And he's the one we have to see more often than not.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. Although one of the reasons I really like Jason X is I think that they've figured out how to direct him by that point, and how to contain
the Hodder,
the problems of the basically, I mean, spoiler alert, basically just film his eye, right? And then you don't get the head movements. You don't get the sense that you're looking at Hulk Hogan the entire time.
Right.
It'll be fine, but
it helps that he's built into a kind of Terminator Jason at one point, so that his hulkiness makes more sense.
Yeah,
within
exactly. His
idea.
Hulkiness, yeah, in both senses of the word.
Right.
So I think it's a casting misstep, and also it makes other Jasons look better because you realize how much they've been playing it down. Because of how much and badly Kane Hodder is reacting to what's going on around him. We get one...
You know what's weird, though? I think we're the minority. To watch Camp Crystal Lake Memories, it seems like fandom loved Kane Hodder and even wanted him to continue in the series when he didn't.
Reading between the lines, and there's a very good reason that he's not in Freddy vs. Jason. I don't quite believe Ronnie Yu when he said it was a decision that was out of his hands. I think that was definitely the right answer to give in that context.
Sure.
But a director like Ronnie Yu would be like, I need a new Jason. I need to refresh this.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. But
all right.
Yeah, but we both feel the same way, and we're both real Friday heads. So I don't think you should. If we were Gene Siskel's and hated all of it, you wouldn't. What we say about Kane Hodder wouldn't matter. But we love this series, and we're attached to Jason and the actors / stuntmen who've played him before.
Yeah,
I would definitely put Kane Hodder in the latter category.
For sure. All right, here's one of my first notes too. We have those opening credits, and then here we are. We're at the lake. Now this also started in the last. No, not really. It didn't really. Not in 6, but it's a part of the series that we did previously. Anyway, my note is this lake is always in flux. Is this a fucking camp for kids? Is this a neighborhood where cabins are? What's going on?
I think it. Oh, that's right. The last time we saw it was the only time we've seen kids there.
Yeah.
And now it seems to have gone back to what it was in 3 and 4, which is kind of.
I was gonna say there's
suburban housing,
homes near. Yeah, right.
So a cul-de-sac. Shall we say?
My question always is, how big is this lake?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look that big.
No.
And what is the geography camp to homes?
Yeah. Well, absolutely, yeah. How big is the lake? How big is the boat? These are questions that are not answered.
Yeah.
By these movies. Just not to take,
because this movie is picking up right where 6 left off, and 6 left off at the camp, and this is telling us there is no camp. It's just homes that are right next to the dock.
I don't want to. So I don't want to add a timeline wrinkle this early on in our discussion, but I believe.
Oh no.
That it is at least 7 years after Jason Lives, because the events, the flashback that begins the movie, where we begin the movie. That's moot because they're all that suburban housing is already set up. Never mind. Yeah, but we flash forward several years, so this is set nearly a decade after Jason Lives.
So 1996-ish?
Who knows by now? I mean, it's I have a couple of different notes in this and the next movie where I'm like, I know this changes the timeline, but I really, at this point, I can't keep track. There's no point.
It's too much.
I know the movie's gonna switch it up on me as soon as I get comfortable with where we are in time, so
right.
Let's just let it ride. But I actually had some more to say about the opening titles.
Oh, okay.
First of all, they're not titles; they're end credits. We go through the entire crew. You know what I mean? Like, there's a fine line between ominous and overlong, and I think this title sequence has got. You don't need to name everyone.
Well,
just so we can hear that one synthesizer crash that they just keep repeating again and again, which to me sounds like the synthesizer literally crashed and turned itself off, and they had to reboot it and do it again, and every time they pressed the key, it crashed again. That's what the music sounds like to me. I know Harry Manfredi is involved in some respect, but
right.
It also seems that there's this other guy who has a malfunctioning synthesizer who's helping him this time.
Or maybe he just ran out of ideas.
Yep.
I didn't mind the repeating, though, because what was there I kind of liked, and I didn't expect to have ominous kind of moody music by number 7. I thought we would have something that sounded a little more inept, like Halloween 5.
Oh, good point.
Circus music. You know?
because like, what is this, 86, 85?
This is 88.
Oh, okay, yeah. You could have definitely switched. Well, I mean, the last song you hear in 6 is The Man Behind the Mask, so they could have gone full metal,
Mhm.
full metal rock on this one,
Sure.
because we've already jumped the shark there in a
In the
wonderful
best way possible.
In the best way possible. And I got one of my favorite shots in the movie is this pan downwards to Jason at the bottom of the lake,
Mm-hmm.
which totally negates the trailer length recap sequence at the beginning. This is all you need.
Right.
I was like, hey, remember where we left him?
This is where he was.
This is where he left him, and now a new story begins. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all we needed. So I wish they would have had the confidence just kind of like just begin there. It would have been such a strong opening shot of the movie.
Trying to get to 128, Tom.
Oh, complete. That's another one of my notes as well, because in a moment, well, no, in a few minutes, we'll see the same flashback that we'd seen minutes before.
Yes.
And that to me was like, and I literally put, we're trying to eke it out to 128.
Yeah. I have that note.
And again, like, as soon as the movie begins proper, we're back into plagiarism mode, because young Tina looks exactly like Poltergeist Heather O'Rourke.
So much so.
But it kind of feels extra. I mean, the series has a reputation for cheesy music. Obviously, Friday the 13th Part 3 is the zenith of that. But this music seems extra cheesy. And just more, and I said this in the ranking episode, more TV movie-like.
Yes,
If I
agree with that.
If I tuned into it on television, I would assume it was made for that medium.
Canadian TV.
Oh, we're not even into the Canadian part of this franchise yet. But and we're also, speaking of plagiarism, we're straight into Carrie territory with the telekinesis.
Yeah,
it comes
it's so
hot.
Carrie, hot and heavy, right?
and you know that's the legacy of this. The production origins of this movie was a Carrie crossover.
Mm-hmm.
It bears the imprint of that still. But it goes further than even Carrie. It's just kind of a, like, telekinesis as a subgenre of paranormal fiction, because as we go on with the whole idea of Bad News Cruise and the psychotherapist who's trying to marshal telekinetic ability just for himself. I mean, that's the Fury. That's the, you know, this is like other Brian De Palma telekinesis films that he's pulling from. And then later on in the movie, it's pure Dead Zone.
Yeah.
So that's like, you know, Cronenberg and King. So we're pulling from basically anything in the telekinesis subgenre is fair game for this movie, yeah. And I mean, you know, all the way to Scanners, I think, and there's a it nearly becomes Scanners late on in the movie. It very nearly goes full Scanners.
Yeah, you're right. At least gets that hockey mask off.
And as far as, you know, I've said this before, when this series plagiarizes, it does it very pleasingly.
Yeah.
Pleasing plagiarism. And then this is a great example of this, because this is something we haven't seen in the series before, but it's now that we've gone supernatural by making Jason a zombie, the last movie kind of used that to turn it into kind of gothic horror.
Yeah.
They, you know, taking it down the Frankenstein route.
Frankenstein route, right.
And this is kind of interpreting supernatural in a slightly different way by having Jason awoken by telekinesis and having him in a psychic battle with the final girl.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just I like the fact both that it's kind of finding other aspects of the genre that we can play with, given that we've gone down a supernatural route, which is the paranormal rather than the gothic. And also that, you know, that's what this series does. It pulls from other great horror movies and horror franchises that have come before it, and does
unabashedly.
it unabashedly and in a way that there's no detriment to the movie itself. And I don't think there is here. These are the parts of the movie that I really respond to.
Well, young Tina's going to use her carry powers against her drunk father.
Yeah.
And then my note is that I'm not saying I don't like it either, but my note is that this pier collapse looks like the Jaws ride at Universal Studios.
Oh, yeah. And, I said in the ranking episode, this whole scene reminds me of Night of the Hunter, but I think that's the way it's lit more than anything else. Like,
Okay, yeah.
This kind of noirish lighting. Yeah, and obviously...
Several times, not that I'm a huge fan of One Kane Hodder, but several times in this film, it appears as though they put actors' lives in serious jeopardy.
Yeah.
And one of them does seem to be this pier collapse. I don't know why this pier is on stilts, by the way. Why is the walkway so far above water? Just for diving into the lake?
So basically, so serial killers can jump out of it, I think, is the...
Yeah.
Or, well, I don't know if the father is a serial killer, but he's a bad dude.
He's not a great guy.
But spoiler alert, he's going to come out of that water later on in the movie. We'll have to have a discussion about that.
Well, we got plenty to talk about.
But this is immediately revealed to be both a flashback / dream sequence.
Yes.
And this is where, I'm already exhausted with the timeline convolutions of this movie. I'm like, oh, okay, so now I got to go forwards, but I also got to go back.
Yeah.
I got to go back in this story and forward since the last movie. It's like there's enough time lapse to deal with already in this series. We don't need another one. But this is where I give the movie credit, and why one of the reasons I call it a good movie. I talked in the ranking episode about being drawn to crap I understand.
Mm-hmm.
This dialogue in the car, it's like, tells us all we need to know. Tells us
everything, yeah.
what the characters think of what they're doing, which is they seem to know it's a bad idea. We'll later find out that Terry Crews thinks it's a bad idea as well, but he has,
he has other considerations.
Yeah. And
my note is that Dr. Crews thinks the scene of the crime will help.
Yes. But it's refreshingly simple.
Yeah.
And definitively expressed, and that's why, I started with the quotable of Bad News Crews, because that's our introduction to Dr. Crews, and
right.
I thought, well, that's great dialogue, because you say the line and then you look at him and that's all you need to say.
Yep.
You know exactly who this guy is.
Efficient.
Also, if you've seen The Fury, you'll know where it's going too. But having said that, and this is where it gets complicated because this movie likes to undo a lot of its good work. The house full of 20-somethings, kids.
Next door, yeah.
Next door. The line, "There goes the neighborhood." What does that mean when it's said about one white blonde woman to another?
Right.
Isn't that usually what you say when someone either lower class or racially different moves into
yes.
a particular neighborhood where they don't have many of their community there? So, like, what's the difference between these two people that needs commenting on?
I think in her mind, it's Melissa, right? So
Melissa,
I think
yeah.
in Melissa's mind, she's quiet and shy, and that's just a no-go.
Okay, so she's not Karen enough. Basically, she's not living up to the white blondness of her hue.
She should be more flamboyant and bitchy.
Okay, got it. Well, they should have picked a different phrase then, one that was less kind of politically loaded. Because I was just like, this is like Chekhov in Star Trek 6 saying, "Guess who's coming to dinner?" It's that kind of tone, but the meaning of it is not the same.
Yeah.
That is about racism. This is not.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And then, we kind of... That's our kind of segue into sort of introducing the characters who are staying in the house opposite in a way that's not satisfactory or even clear who's who, or it's very difficult to
It doesn't
to
even
tell.
make sense why these people would know each other or be friends.
Right.
Enough to go stay in a house together.
For a birthday party for someone who's not there.
Who's not there?
Who's not there?
Main hunk's brother.
And I mean, this series has always been about sexual tension between young, pretty people, but I just feel like these people are just too glamorous now for me to take it seriously. I felt I like the first 3 or 4 movies. It's like, yeah, there are attractive people in there, but there's a few Uggs, some Uggs and chubs, and then just people who are good looking, but they just look like normal people you see in your everyday lives.
Yeah.
And that's
well,
gone.
What's his name?
That's
Kevin Spiritus, who plays Nick. When you hear 450 episodes of Days of Our Lives, you think, yes, of course.
But and again, this is a paywall spoiler, but Travis Van Winkle in the Friday the 13th reboot, is also, I believe, like a soap actor, and they make that work. They make his soap opera-ness work for the character he's playing in the movie. But there's no sense of that here. It is just who are the most attractive people we could get to fill out our movie, and whether they write for the roles.
Acting, schmacting. How do they look?
But even casting, even like, does this person make a good stoner? Does this person make a good, whatever the archetype is, film, comic book nerd,
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, we're about to, have some questionable therapy tactics. Why don't we take our first break and then we'll come back?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll be right back right after this, everybody.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had 1, maybe 2 craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here discussing Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. Got that title right.
Yeah. It's a fairly unwieldy title.
I'll never get the timeline right, but I got that. No. I got that title right for once. Okay, so we've met the kids next door. We're into the house with Bad News Cruz.
Yeah.
I wrote down this line. I can't remember. I think this comes after the questionable therapy that Bad News Cruz is giving, because he's just yelling at his patient.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when she lights the matchbook on fire.
Yeah.
But then she kind of collapses into Mom, and she says, "Mama, I miss him so much." Her father.
Yeah.
And look, even if it was an accidental, it still might be murder what she did to her father.
Yeah.
But he's not the kind of guy you need to miss. It seems like a blessing that he fell into the lake and out of their lives.
It's unclear whether they're trying to say something about how you romanticize the dead, your dead loved ones, or whether they never really established quite how, because he seemed, we hear him arguing with the mother in the house, and taken out of context, that doesn't necessarily mean he's abusive, but I think that is the overall suggestion.
Yeah.
But she seems to miss him as if she really loved him and that he was a decent guy, and then, I mean, I don't know what to make of his return at the end, but that also suggests some level of redemption of at least his image.
Right.
So I don't know what to think. I don't think I think they're inconsistent in how they depict the dead father.
Correct. Yeah.
I think it's another one of the parts of the movie that's kind of doesn't really have a consistent through line to it.
Well, not at all. I mean, by the end of this movie, he's gonna be the hero?
Yeah,
Mark?
exactly. Yeah, and he isn't set up that way. But the way that people talk about him in between, you're not quite sure whether that's just romanticization or being without a parent or what.
You know what it is? It's as though the movie itself is a battered wife. The movie makes excuses for the husband. He becomes the hero at the end.
Well, speaking of that, the mother's definitely got a type, right? Because she's romantically interested in Dr. Cruz, who from moment one is established as the worst person that has ever existed on planet Earth. And that's another weakness of the movie, is that, at what point would the mother believe that Cruz was on the level? The Cruz was on the level, right?
Right.
That willing suspension of disbelief. I guess it does work if you think that she's like an abuse victim, but I don't think the movie's thinking on that level.
Right.
If it's complex, it is accidentally so. And we're kind of cutting away to various mini scenes that are familiar from the canon. So a couple having sex in the van,
mm-hmm.
to what sounds like a public domain Beach Boys track. I renamed the band the Lake Children. That they're listening
the Lake
to.
Children.
The Lake Children. So
also it's right around here we get that repeated scene that we already saw once earlier in the film.
The flashback that pads out, going back to the flash, a flash flashback? What do you call it?
A reflash.
A flash flashback. And then again the music, which I think is problematic in this movie. And then a track that I have renamed Public Domain Tubular Bells, because it's trying to do
don't know
the
what that means.
Well, the Tubular Bells is the track that they pulled from an electronic album by Mike Oldfield that they used for The Exorcist.
Oh, okay.
So the do 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 do
yeah.
do. So they're trying to do that, but they don't want to spend any money in order to do that. So it's another setting on that guy's malfunctioning synthesizer to create this Tubular Bells. Oh, and this is so telekinesis. I mean, we're burying
awakens
the lead here
Jason.
as the movie. Yeah, it resurrects Jason. I would say at this point as good a device as any for reanimating him.
Absolutely, totally, yeah.
But despite the fact it seems kind of awfully random, arch without being intentionally so, as it was in the last movie.
Yeah.
The distinction between him, being reanimated by lightning a la Frankenstein, the knowingness of that.
Right, yeah.
That's all gone now. This is played totally straight. And also, it's kind of on an island by itself. Like, telekinesis never awakes him again in any of these movies. So that's another factor that retrospectively they don't keep to this aspect of the mythology that he can be woken by psychic,
right?
As I say, telekinesis in the local area.
Campers can expect telekinesis in the area. This has been Channel 5 News.
That's a great idea. You should pitch that. That's a great idea. Like telekinesis as a kind of as a weather as an aspect of the
related
weather.
problem.
Yeah.
Love it. I have a question.
Okay.
So, because right after the telekinesis, at least my next note is that some campers break down, and it turns out it'll be the brother of Cute Boy.
Yeah. And
Nick.
I thought this was this is how confusing the introductions of these characters were. I thought those were the couple who were having sex in the van that we were seeing, but they're an entirely different set of kids.
Aren't the couple having sex in the van African Americans?
Yes. Okay. But maybe I should have been paying more attention. But they're set up as if they're somewhere else,
Yeah.
and they're just in the van outside the house.
Outside the house. Yeah, outside the cabin.
So you know the person the film goer in me is going, well, if you're introducing that, it's to show you that something's going on in a parallel location.
Right.
So we're picking up from there, and then and it's dark. I mean,
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
But my question is, because their car breaks down, and this
Right.
happens repeatedly in the movie. Any car that breaks down and or crashes,
I see where you're going.
the people get out and immediately leave the road and just start walking blindly through the forest.
That's what I got.
What's
yeah,
that
it's
all
like,
about?
Yeah, going in. It's sort of like when you go into the woods at night. There's only one way the story is going.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that telekinesis was involved in all these
Oh,
cars
no.
breaking down. That would have been
That's
really
good. That's good. I like
they
that.
should have done that, because that's a series cliche by this point.
Mm-hmm.
So they could have made that telekinesis dependent.
Right. There is some kind of good stuff within this, though. There's some inversions that I
Okay.
kind of like. When I think the boyfriend gets it first. Doesn't the girlfriend find him with his back broken up in the tree? By the way, this kid with his mangled body hung up in the tree is like a shining beacon for every character in this movie. There's nobody that doesn't find him.
Yeah, that's true. He's like a lighthouse.
Yeah, exactly. But I did like the inversion of the girlfriend dying, because you have the slow camera walk up behind her to the point where you think it's
Yeah.
going to be the fake out,
Uh-huh.
and then it's not. It's Jason, and he kills her.
Yeah, so I mean, there's there's things I like in this scene. By the way, and we've skipped over a couple of things. I don't know if there's anything to say about it. Jason shows a little backbone.
Yeah, walking out of the water.
Walking out of the.
That's the big take on Jason for this movie. Exposed spine and ribs, I think.
Yeah. So they're going. He's
He's waterlogged.
He's waterlogged, but he's a decaying zombie at this point, right? I mean, he's actually not been a zombie for that long, in continuity. So
I got lots to say about the next movie. I'm very excited.
yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, he's basically a shark in that movie, but we'll get there. Yeah, this is sort of beginnings of Jason as a water creature, I think, is definitely there.
Mhm.
But also, the terrible bit of acting from Kane Hodder when he wakes up. Because it is
Right.
like, what's going on here? Like, it's look of confusion, like, why am I at the bottom of a lake?
He has no memory.
Yeah. You want it to be a bit more stoic than that. And
Mhm.
kind of... And again, like, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They might have put Kane Hodder underwater and he was legitimately drowning, so it might just be his reaction to nearly dying.
That's true.
That's totally possible. But given his other...
Still the 1980s.
Yeah, given his other overacting in the movie, I suspect it might have been a choice that was too much.
Too much.
Too much.
Way too much.
Too much fucking head movement. So anyway, but there's lots. So there's things I like in this woods kill.
Yeah, oh, the girlfriend gets it first. That's right. She does get it first, and then the boyfriend.
Yeah, but there's a cut from Jason killing the boyfriend. No, sorry, killing the the girlfriend to the boyfriend relieving himself, and it's kind of like murder portrayed as a biological urge that has to be satiated at that point, which kind of fits what we know about Jason.
Sure.
To this point, I'm a little leery about the return of slow lumbering Jason.
Mm.
I feel like Kane's kind of just dragging it out.
Yeah.
So he can be on screen for longer.
More. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's kind of like, I think in the hands of Derek, like, again, I thought about this. It's like, how is this different from what Derek Mears did, where he kind of made him a hunter and kind of lots of sitting back and waiting for the
Yeah, but when he moves,
exactly.
He'll yeah.
That's the difference, and also intentionality. I think the intention is to kind of overplay it and showboat with Kane, whereas I think Derek Mears is purely characterization.
Yeah.
So I do like it when Jason is portrayed as a hunter, but I think that's accidental here. I think this is about Kane hogging the screen time, hoddering the screen time.
Yeah.
Which, as I will call it from now on, I will call it hoddering the screen.
The next play you do, somebody's upstaging you. Don't fucking hodder me,
Don't
all right?
fucking
You're not
hodder
hoddering
me.
this stage.
Yeah.
But I noticed too that when he does kill the boyfriend, we have it's like we're hearkening back to 3 because we have a bit of a 3D throw with that tent stake through him.
Yes.
3D without 3D, right?
3D without 3D. It's really difficult to tell, and this is where also Crystal Lake Memories is helpful in some respects, but in other respects it kind of makes you rethink these movies in ways you hadn't before and second guess yourself, because I think it's on record that this, at least the next 2 or 3, no, like this and the next movie were cut to pieces by the MPAA.
So that's one of my big notes for this movie, especially. This movie feels incomplete on screen because of the MPAA.
So anything like that, I never know if it's a choice or if they have to cut in the middle.
Yeah.
So it makes it hard to tell, like, at what point they wanted to end the shot or not, or were kind of forced to. Is it going to cut away to something gory, or was it always going to end like that? So it's really difficult to tell. And as they said, we don't have the footage to reconstruct it and find that out,
sadly.
which sucks. At least, not even for an extended cut. Like, I don't really care about that. Theatrical cut for me is what it is and always should be. But archaeologically, I'd like to know what they intended to shoot, to shoot, and what they put on screen because they had no choice.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, back at the party, we have a Pepsi and Slice commercial I wrote.
Sure,
Lots of product placement.
Lots of product placement. We meet our dystopian science fiction writer, who will be our stand-in nerd for this movie. And I mean, like, the teen 20-something house parties as we know them from this series, except this one seems to be already in full swing when the movie begins. Normally, the first act of a Friday the 13th movie is getting to this and setting up the party.
Setting up, right?
Or we see, like, they've already done the decorations. They're already, like, done the surprise party stuff when we meet everyone in the scene.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and then Tina seems to see the future, and I wrote new skill.
New skill, and also brings in the Dead Zone, right? This is telekinesis a la the Dead Zone, seeing a future vision of Jason's killings. Although, as she or someone else says in Crystal Lake Memories, it's kind of not. It's sort of a pre-construction of them, because they're not how they actually go down. They're just a flavor of what happens in the kill. So it's like it's like the kabuki version of what happens. So very representational. It's like a representational still image of what Jason's killings are gonna be. Yeah, and I think we're kind of we're kind of, this is cut into the sequence, because the murder sequence, because the next note I have is about Jason slicing the tent.
Mm-hmm.
Which is sort of, I don't know, again, feels very showboating.
Yeah.
Showboating serial killer, which is not what I think Jason's been up to this point. I think in Kane Hodder's hands, he will become that, but up to this point,
right.
I feel like, I don't know, like it's very utilitarian.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It doesn't have that sinister edge to it. It's just like, hello, I'm here.
Welcome to my murder.
Welcome. Yeah. And I don't like. I'd have to.
There was a disappointment for me in this too, though, because I saw Jason X in the theater.
Yeah.
Oh, so many years ago.
I know what you're talking.
And so enjoyed the sleeping bag murder in that movie.
But it is played for laughs there.
Yeah.
Except that the in-joke is that their attempt to do that in this movie was cut out of the movie.
Yes, right.
So they put it back in, but it's played completely. It's very funny. It's played completely relaxed, where he's he's like essentially just like he's trying to get a stone out of a shoe, hitting her against the tree. And then of course Friday the 13th does the puts them both to shame and finally perfects this moment. The reboot,
right.
I mean, the Friday
the
reboot, and it turns into one of the all-time best kills of the series. So
absolutely,
they found a way to do this right eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But I was to say I have to go back to Jason Lives, because I remember the killings, despite being more comedic, being far more effective in that movie. So I wonder whether.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of a
This is
letdown.
where we have like the follow cam, and he from the back of the chest grabs the heart.
This is
right?
This is bad suspense, because we know it's Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
We established that it's Melissa, so the Jason vision has to be her because of the way the scene's shot.
Yeah,
because we've seen an establishing shot of her, so it's not how you do suspense.
right.
And it's already becoming quite tired. This idea that you think it's Jason's POV and it turns out to be another one of the pervy campers.
Right. That's why I liked that one shot, because he did subvert my expectation, because I thought it was going to be somebody else, and it turned out it was Jason, and he killed someone.
It can
work,
but it's and also, again, I don't know if this is just they wrote Melissa as a character who has aphasia or something and doesn't make sense, but she says she calls Tina Marilyn Munster.
Yeah, I have that note.
Which, as far as intertextual references go, she looks more like Marilyn Munster.
She's more Marilyn Munster, exactly.
Because the point of Marilyn Munster is she's the only vaguely normal-looking one in the Munsters.
Right.
You could have picked any other Munster to make the same point. Yet they picked Marilyn.
That's great.
But also, there's a girl in the kitchen dressed exactly like Jessie from Toy Story 2. So I don't know what's going on in the costuming here.
Oh, by the way, I also have a note that says the brother that gets killed, and then the campers, like all these guys look like Will Forte. I thought I was seeing early Will Forte attempts.
It's just early attempts to perfect Will Forte.
Yeah,
like he's Snoke. They eventually got the Saturday Night Live version that got him right.
That's funny.
Well, this movie could use MacGruber.
Yeah,
I'll give them that.
Right?
I'd be happy to throw in a MacGruber into this movie. This is coming up on my favorite part of the movie, or favorite shot from the movie. You said that you have a favorite shot of the movie. I wonder if it's the same. And it's the bead shattering.
Mine's later.
The bead necklace shattering.
That's good.
It's an amazing effect because it not only
Yeah.
because of the practical effect itself, which is, I mean, there must be some wire work that because it suspends
Yeah.
in midair for a second before it shatters,
Fishing line or something.
something like that. But I mean, totally believable magic, like close up magic style. But it also builds to a crescendo, like the pacing of it is really
Mhm.
good, and the problem is they ride the line of the absurd with that moment and get away with it. And
Yeah.
then they do it again with the television, and it just looks ridiculous. It's just
And
it's
it looks
ridiculous.
bad.
So stupid.
Exactly.
A floating television set. You know what I mean? It's like you peaked at regardless. The MPAA should have intervened on the basis of quality,
I know.
not content. At that point, they should have been like, "Hey, cut it after the necklace. It'll be amazing."
Cut the television throw.
Yes.
What? There's nothing violent about that. Nobody gets hit by the TV. Yeah, it just looks bad.
And the censor was definitely watching around these scenes because they only let a little bit of tit appear from underneath the sweater, and
Mhm.
more tit,
And underneath the water.
and underneath the water, yeah, full nudity, but all seen from the back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You get kind of a Jaws homage in that water shot
you
too.
do. This and the next movie is a lot of Jaws. I feel
Yeah.
going. I mean, the next movie's mostly set on a boat, so.
But I do kind of lament that scene because when the when the couple goes off for swimming and Jason appears, that's a good chop of the lower half of a jaw and nose
Yeah,
that he takes off that guy, and we don't get to
we don't see any of it. Yeah,
we don't get to see it.
although.
Now, not seeing kills happens a lot in this series.
I just want to know where they intended to do it and where they
Yeah, exactly.
they
But
were
it-
forced
it-
to. It sounds like
it
they were
feels-
forced to most of the time.
It feels like when you watch the movie and you know that this is the movie that was on screen and in theaters, it feels like edited for television
It does, yeah.
film. And that is ultimately unsatisfying.
Yeah. Something else that's...
Also, every teenager in this house is a bad person because every single time somebody's killed, nobody asks about those people. Nobody's like, "Hey, where is Sandra? Where's Michael?
Yeah.
Where's Jane?" They're
Right.
just missing and nobody misses them.
Yeah, and especially as they're having a party for someone who hasn't arrived and they're not
Right.
questioning, and they're like, "Oh, that's so..." I can't remember his name, but it's like, "Oh, that's so Bob not to turn up to his own surprise party." It's like,
Yeah.
have you considered maybe Bob had an accident or
Yeah.
could have been killed by... I mean, you are at Camp Crystal... You are at the cul-de-sac built upon Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
But this is, I think, a turn in the series coming up here. I think this is the first time... I might be wrong about this, so you or listeners correct me if I'm wrong, but the association between Jason and young people's moral transgressions has always been kind of implied up to this point.
Right.
Now it's like he can smell it,
Right.
and it stirs him into action.
Right. Yeah.
And they play this throughout for the rest of the movies, essentially, right up to Freddy vs. Jason.
It's like a smelling salt.
Yeah, like a smelling salt. And I don't care for this. I like there to be a little bit of give
Ambiguity.
and take. Yeah, just a little
Yeah.
bit of it's like if you look at it overall, you're like, oh yeah, there's a pattern there, but it's not every
Oh,
time.
there's something there.
Yeah.
Right.
But
yeah.
it's not every time, and he kills people that don't conform to that scenario. But here it is like as soon as someone lights up a joint and or gets
Right.
out a condom, he springs into he springs into life Dracula style. And
Yeah, to me,
he's off
it's
to the
more like
races.
his actual awakening
Yeah.
from the bottom of the lake
Yeah.
with the cane hodder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So as soon as Pip,
Misa gonna kill now.
because in this one it's like as soon as premarital sex is suggested,
Right.
he appears, which I like at this point I hadn't rewatched Jason X, but I was like, I bet this is even more presumptive than the parody version of this in Jason X
Yeah, right.
But yeah, Jason is a water creature, right? He's been slumbering, he's been down that lake long enough that he's sort of adopted the characteristics of a fish. I guess, well, I mean, so I started to ask a question and then I stopped myself because I don't know if we should waste time talking about it, but how long in his lifetime has he been down in the lake? When did he first...
He has overall spent probably the majority of his time in the lake.
Because, I don't know, I think these movies tell you different things about at what point he left the lake after he died as a child.
That's true.
He's had about 7 to 10 years down there since the end of the last movie. So, how old is... See, this is why I shouldn't
Tom,
have... Yeah, all right,
Tom, please.
We're
not going down that road.
My first instincts were correct. Don't ask the question. Best left unsolved.
I can't have this episode be any longer than 2 hours.
Okay. Withdrawn.
Withdrawn, Your Honor.
When I'm trying to figure out... Well, at the point I'm trying to figure out how much of Jason's lifetime has taken place at the bottom of the lake, then you have to ask how old is Jason, and at that point, you need an ejector seat, I think.
Now, I don't know where you are. I mean, there are some things like I have a note that says, "Why does Melissa try to make Nick jealous with Eddie when Nick doesn't want anything to do with her in the first place?" I thought that was kind of funny.
Well,
my main note is: does Jason have the power of creating hallucinations himself?
Good question.
What's going on there?
Yeah, this is like Superman 2.
Mm-hmm.
He just keeps running into the wrong Jason.
Jason's like, I used to play this as a kid. How did you get to play that as a kid? You left the planet when you were a baby.
That would have made more sense from Jason, thinking about it.
Yeah.
He'd turn up in different parts of the lake. As a frog boy, jumping on people's boats. So, yeah, well, this is where, in the story, the mother discovers that Dr. Cruz has sinister intent, but...
is the piece of shit that we always knew him to be.
It's no revelation to us, so it almost doesn't matter by this point.
Yeah. And
then we get into this...
You know what I'll say, though? The only thing they do well is that stake in the porch behind. I completely forgot that it was Cruz that took it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. But
I'll give him that.
We get into the makeover scene, which reminds me of how long ago the 1980s was. Because this...
face touch up my ass.
Because this is this is the kind of storyline for women that I would associate with a 1940s film. The idea that she has to be in any way made over. But what was the worst part of it was that it didn't even mean anything in the movie.
No, yeah.
Because nobody saw her made up.
No, but no human saw her. No human being said, "Hey, you look fantastic."
And that's why I rewrote this kill to make you did to make her makeover count. Where what should have happened was Jason saw her, went to approach her, then decided she wasn't worth killing, and then just sort of walked away, and she had to plead with him to kill her just so she could feel included with the rest of them. Because then the whole makeover thing would have made sense in the context of Jason going around killing people. Like, he just goes, no. He just
That's a Tom Stewart special rewrite right there.
He just goes
I like it.
Never mind. And she's like, no. You kill me, okay, like all the others. You kill me like all the others.
Get back here, you piece of shit.
And it doesn't have to be that, right? Because we're not all genius script editors like I am. But they could have totally made that glamour play into the aesthetics of the kill
work.
Or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could have ended up with Jason. Is an even better idea. Jason has a lot of makeup on his mask instead of blood.
he finds her earring and just repeatedly stabs her with the pointy end.
Jason, and then he's
But-
like a kind of Leatherface hybrid because he's also got like a made up face on his hockey mask as well.
Yeah, right. So this is the worst shot kill in the entire movie because she goes into that tiny shack
Yeah.
and there's only one place she could hide, and yet Jason, the way it's shot, there's nowhere for Jason to look except around the corner, which he doesn't do. And then she does a bathroom stall maneuver that does nothing but make noise that Jason appears to not hear.
Yeah.
Everything about it is awkward, weird, and poorly done.
That's what made me think of that rewrite. I think they could have done better. They also could have I think they could have spun the surprise party into a safe sex message
Mm-hmm.
by like writing happy, but instead of writing it happy birthday on those balloons, they could have had it written on the condoms they were using.
You're determined to get as much rewrite in this film as
That's
you possibly
true, yeah,
can.
yeah. A lot of missed opportunities.
But that's my next note. Like, Jason goes to the cabin and just everyone's fucking. This is where we get a lot of that band sex.
Yeah, and is it true that, am I remembering it rightly, that they opt not to use the condoms, and that's the point that Jason comes in? So it's like Jason is a kind of safe sex advocate.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I didn't write it down, but I think that's right.
So it's like he's like the post-AIDS slasher.
Right. Yeah.
He's going to punish those for. He's not punishing people having sex. He's punishing people electing to not have sex safely.
Correct.
There you go. I don't know if anyone's written about the post-AIDS slasher. I get people have talked about Fatal Attraction as that, but not
Yeah.
Friday the 13th Part 7, the new play. Probably.
Not part 7.
And The Fly. But
Right.
as AIDS metaphors, but not this particular movie. To me, it's weird that there's Jason kills a character called Michael,
Mm-hmm.
because we find out that the guy in the lighthouse boyfriend he's like, that's Michael,
Right.
and everyone keeps saying Michael, and I'm like, Jason's killing Michael. So is it like, are they sort of
Was
soft?
that purposeful?
Yeah, are they
Yeah.
kind of, is it a soft pitching of another crossover that they could?
Right.
Because you know Ronnie Yu in that Crystal Lake Memories said, I think I would have liked to have done
Yeah, right.
I believe
A 3-way.
his exact words are, I would have liked to have had Freddy fight the Maya guy, the Halloween guy, the Maya, I believe is how he goes. Yeah, so that was weird that it's like pick a different name, and they keep doing that. Like they keep picking names that remind you of other other horror franchises. Usually Halloween. There's an example coming up in a future movie.
Well, it's still the 80s, so everybody's a Nick or a Mike or a John.
No, when
It's not like today where everybody's got to be named Lane or Logan or Bryce or, names are just different.
in future episodes, I will counter argue that they picked a name that people do not normally have, but is a very famous name from horror cinema. But yeah, all the stoner comedy from the guy who doesn't look like a stoner.
Yeah, I have that note.
But also, something I noticed when they looked through when Cruise's newspaper clippings of Jason's kills, there's someone hanging around Jason getting photographs Peter Parker style of all his rampages that make it into these clippings. So I'm wondering, is Jason taking those photos himself a la Peter Parker? Is he like... Is he also
Sending
going
them
around
in.
town pretending to be a news photographer with one of those hats with the little ticket that says press on top of a big hockey mask?
Listen, I'm a zombie, but I need a little side hustle.
I got a scoop for you, editor. I need pictures of Jason. That's a good sketch, isn't it? Like Jason delivering photographs of himself to a J. Jonas style
I like
editor. Yeah,
absolutely.
there's a great nudity.
I know that.
Go on. I've got a great nudity.
Well, no, you go ahead.
Well, it's just it's a silly thing. There's this. I like my sneaky tits. We talked.
No, I like the sneaky tits.
You like the sneaky tits for a different reason, but I like it when a director just kind of sneakily throws in a pair of tits, and they make such an the scene in which I don't know what character it is at this point. Is it who's having sex at this point? It's not Melissa, is it? It's someone else. It's whoever.
Melissa denies sex eventually.
It's who.
It's
Eddie's
the other girl up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every time you see her,
I don't remember her name.
When you see her in bed, she's kind of like doing the movie thing.
She's the one that gets thrown out the window.
Well, that doesn't narrow it down. She's sitting in bed in that movie way where the bed sheets are like covering up her tits.
Yeah.
And like it's like obviously the director's thinking, well, if we we don't want any more trouble from the MPAA. It's like keep yourself covered. And then at one point she like drops it looks like accidentally, and you see her tits for a second, and she covers back up, and the director's like, I can't be bothered to cut around that. That's fine. It'll probably be the moment that the censor's looking down at their notes because they're cutting out the last scene we did, and they look up and like, I assume she's had that bed sheet on her the whole time. Anyway, carry on with you.
Well, this is coming up on my favorite shot in the.
Oh, is it the cat jumping out?
No, but I
don't need to see that again in a horror movie.
It's been taken.
Yep.
But they're humping, and you get the sneaky tit, and he goes downstairs to get some stuff. The I don't remember. Jason. Jason undoes the power, so the lights are out.
Sneaky
and there's a good kind of Hitchcock shot up above.
Yeah.
Family room into kitchen, and Eddie the stoner. Is it Eddie that's the stoner?
No, I think. Isn't Eddie the nerd?
Yeah, Eddie's the nerd, I think. You're right.
None of these characters are memorable. And none of them have photos on IMDb, so it's very difficult.
I know, exactly. It's very difficult. Anyway, the stoner is going downstairs into the kitchen, and then the lightning flashes.
Uh-huh.
And what you previously didn't see, you now see, and that's Jason in the corner. First time I saw that, I thought, oh, I like that.
That's classic. Yeah, that's classic horror. That's like something from
classic horror,
like something from Cat People. Like a real horror movie.
Right.
A real old timey horror movie. That's great.
I wrote whoever Eddie is. I wrote that he casually uses the word cunt.
That's Eddie's probably the stoner then. I can't imagine nerd science fiction writer saying that.
Yeah.
Also, the weed.
I also wrote that when Tina finds those dudes clipping, she goes kinetic crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I noticed that the weed. So not only do we have a stoner who clearly hasn't had a drug before, but also the weed that he's smoking looks like actual grass. And I don't mean like grass as in weed. I mean lawn clippings.
No, like lawn clippings, yeah. Mown grass.
So I was like, I don't know if anyone has ever smoked weed on the set, which seems unbelievable. Yeah.
I did write down actual cat scare. Get your shit together is what I wrote.
I gotta say, for a movie directed by a practical effects person, I expected a better head.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good head. That's my note. Exactly.
No.
Not a good head.
Right.
I kind of thought, oh, well, the reason is that it's out of focus, and they probably thought, well, why waste all this time building the head if the sensors are just going to cut it anyway?
Right.
So, and yeah, got more window throwing. I mean, that's Jason's.
He throws her out the window.
Yeah.
Also, I wrote down this note. I wrote down that I don't think Tina is the only one with superpowers, because Jason is going from the cabin to where Cruz and Mom are,
Yeah.
back to the cabin. Like, he's able to get into the forest, back to the cabin, down the road.
Mm-hmm.
I think just by thinking about it.
Yeah.
I don't think he has to actually walk.
That's the not the only real problem, but one of the problems of making him subject to the telekinesis, but him having no inherent telekinetic ability, is that in order for this to work, you have to shortcut that he's fighting back with psychic ability as well.
Yeah.
For it to kind of make sense, except that he can't be because he has no psychic ability that we know of. Although in these scenes, it almost suggests he does, that they're psychically linked.
Mm-hmm.
Because how is she seeing all these images of him killing people in the future if there's not some connection between the two of them?
Right. But
he's a ghost, so
the director is unclear what
yeah
the connection is as it relates to us, the audience.
And I guess that's the problem as well, if for it to be a Carrie crossover.
Mm-hmm.
If that was the case, then it would be Carrie's telekinesis versus Jason's whatever his skills are this time.
Right.
He doesn't really have any. I mean, he kills people with a machete, comes back to life. That's it, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Has a lot of continuity problems when he appears. So he doesn't have a clearly defined superpower like Carrie does.
Yeah. We're not going to solve that mystery. Let's take our final break, and then we'll come back and finish up with...
When did Jason go to that cabin that we see him in part 2?
Yeah, exactly. we gotta get to the final battle and to Slightly Dirty Dad. We'll talk about that when we get back. Right after this, everybody. Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, finishing up with this first installment of the back half of the Friday the 13th series.
Talk about timeline problems.
I'm telling you. Where are we? I know he throws her out the window, and then my next note is that Jason finds Bad News Cruz and Mom.
That's where I am.
And
the hedge trimmer.
It's not like you were in doubt of how bad a person Dr. Cruz was. But when he gives up Mom, it still manages to surprise me, where I think, God, bigger piece of shit than I ever thought.
So this is another, I want to say it's another first for the series that they maintain until the end of the series, but we haven't seen before, or at least not, again, it's like the premarital sex thing, like not as clearly as before, that in every movie there's got to be a character so bad that you're gonna see them experience a fun death, so the audience can enjoy seeing them killed.
Yeah, right.
And I think this is the first one, and the way Kane Hodder talks about it in Crystal Lake Memories makes me think that he came up with it as an idea, because he talks about it. First of all, he talks about it like it's been in every Friday the 13th movie. It definitely hasn't. But he's just obviously Jason's got to kill the worst guy in the movie, right? And no, I think you came up with that. I don't remember it before. I remember it in every movie you're in subsequently after. But, I mean, and he sort of, with the hedge trimmer, again, it's sort of a bit of a, he sort of becomes a horticultural Leatherface. So it's another crossover moment where he kind of turns into a Texas Chainsaw Massacre character for a brief moment.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that he or someone in Crystal Lake Memories says, I've never seen this piece of equipment ever again. To me, it just looks like a regular hedge trimmer. Aren't the hedge trimmers with circular saws on them?
Yeah, because now they just have them, instead of a big giant blade, they just have them with two kind of hard plastic pieces in it?
Yeah, so people don't get decapitated using them.
Right, so people don't get, back in the 80s, we were okay with lots of injuries related to all of our equipment, but...
Although it's a good detail that they didn't have to make that they found that item. That was a real item that they found in the real 1980s world.
So funny.
That was available for purchase. But again...
if I remember correctly, it's still kind of edited... It's still one of those kind of edited for TV moments.
It is.
It's not very satisfying.
It's not, although, again, I think this is why I hesitated earlier that they were trying to do 3D without 3D, because this would have been the moment.
This is the other moment, right.
To go full 3D where they just put, you make it look as if the hedge trimmer is cutting the camera. Although I don't think they'd agree to that because they probably have to cut through a camera in order to do it. And it doesn't sound like they have the budget for that. So I think they could, but yeah, I guess that's the other problem is you don't know what the MPAA is going to cut, so you can't they must, but again, they should have an idea by now. It's like, okay, we need a plan B because they're probably going to cut this.
Always have a plan B.
You'd think by this point they'd be like, okay, let's film...
By part 7? Yeah.
Let's film the version that
we want,
and then let's film the version that will be a decent alternative.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like Hollywood did with censorship for decades. Where they worked around the confines of it.
There's nothing they do in this movie, or that I imagine they wanted to do for this movie, that you wouldn't see on The Walking Dead on television.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, even like 2 movies from now, the kind of the yoke of censorship has lifted, because they talk about the handover point is the sort of once you start to get those unrated cuts on video,
right?
There's kind of no incentive for the MPAA to kind of stop exposing people to this content in movie theaters because they can get it.
They're gonna get it.
They're gonna get it anyway. So there's a cultural shift in the middle of these 5 movies.
Yeah, and
it's just a shame that these first 2 movies are the victim of that, because a few years later it wouldn't have made a difference.
Yeah, my next note is that Tina finds her mom and has 6 seconds of grievance.
Yeah.
Before going on to find all the bodies.
She did effectively kidnap her and place her in the custody of Dr. Cruz, so...
True.
I don't think she deserves that much mourning. She's very slow to realize that she has effectively condemned her daughter.
I might suggest that mom is a victim as well.
She is, yes. The movie doesn't know that, but yes, she in another movie, she'd be a better written character, and that dimension would be there. But it is not this movie, which allows
it's not in this film,
which allows me to be much more callous in my estimation of her. Also, I'm amazed, and this is an overdue note from earlier on in the movie, but I'm amazed we went back to psychiatry and mental hospitals at all, because it hasn't worked so far in the series. You know,
Right.
5 is based in a mental hospital. That was, you know, the consensus was that was a misstep. And yeah.
Right.
I think, I don't know, maybe they're like, as long we can have a mental hospital in the background of the movie, as long as it's unseen. Maybe that's the distinction. Because 6, the first thing we see is like 2 people escaping from a mental hospital, but we never go back to the mental hospital.
And we never go back.
So maybe
but it's
that's
interesting
what
to me that the back half of this series, a couple of times, this and Jason Goes to Hell, they pick up and choose to do things that fandom had already rejected once within the series.
Yeah, and it's a sense of there's a lot of do-over in these movies, rather than, as well as like throwing in new ideas and big swings. They also go like, we didn't quite get that right. Let's see if we can work it out.
Let's see if we can work out the kinks.
You know, I'm not sniffing at that, because I think the whole of Jason X comes out of trying to redo Jason Takes Manhattan, the travel section of Jason Takes Manhattan, better than it originally was.
The limited travel section.
The part of the movie that's in transit, which is 2/3 of the movie. Yeah, and this is where it feels like, although it's never said, that Jason and Tina are engaged in a psychic war.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that only one of them has telekinetic abilities and the other's just a lake monster.
Just sitting there taking it. Breathing heavy with displeasure. But having said that, I think one of the reasons that this movie is high up on our lists, I think this last portion of the movie is the best portion of the movie, and so it lingers better in your mind. Oh. I like what I'm seeing in this. And my next note is this electrocution in the small mud puddle.
Yeah.
The branches moving is one of the better effects in this film.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did a rewrite here too.
Of course you did.
Because Tina kind of does what we have seen recently as force projection with her telekinesis, right? So what they should have done is, and they would have had to get Betsy Palmer back for this, but she could have force projected a Betsy Palmer.
Yeah, right.
And then have Betsy Palmer, like Betsy Palmer's floating head, tell Jason what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've seen that before, but now that, you know, someone with telekinetic ability could do that in a more fully realized way, where it actually seemed like she was there and she's like slapping Jason across the face or something, like you're knocking on his head with a cane, like Force Ghost Yoda. Putting a dice in his hand that disappears.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
One of these films will do it.
Oh yeah, that's true. That is true. Maybe I'm rereading through that. I also like how Melissa is so, everything she says in this movie is a mystery. Because when they're like, we got to, you know, they're barricaded themselves in, and then it's like, we got to go, you know, we've got to get out of here. She's like, and you know, face him. She's like, that's not my style. That's like being very specific about being the kind of person who will not face up to a killer. What life experience have you had that means you know what you would do in this situation? Like, that's not my style. That sounds like someone who's gone through this a lot of time, decided it's not for them. I think she's got, like, she had, like, prior to the movie, she had like a head trauma or something, because doesn't make sense when she speaks.
Right. Oh wait, where am I? Oh yeah, because Jason. See, I thought I have this note before Melissa though, because I wrote before Melissa gets the axe to the head, I wrote classic Jason window smash.
Yeah,
where
so
he jumps in through the window, right?
He jumps in through the window and he falls down the stairs. He creates like a hole in the stairs that they have to walk over. So he's lying.
Yeah, but that's when he's coming up and they smash him with the light bulb, and then he falls back.
Right.
But I have the window smash jumping into the cabin before that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Time goes forward. That's correct. We know that much.
Well,
from
but
these
I guess I'm confused because I remember Melissa. My note is Melissa's bitching out,
Mm-hmm.
and then she opens the door and Jason axes her in the head.
Yeah.
Do they just close the door
I don't remember.
and then he jumps in through the window?
Probably. That sounds like Jason.
Because I wrote the window smash happened before all that.
Well, maybe he dropped something, jumped in the window, got it back, went back outside, used the door.
Sorry, excuse me. Pardon
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
Pardon me. Killing you in a moment.
But my note is that when they're stepping over the gap in the stairs with him lying
Yeah, I like
unconscious
that.
beneath, really well done suspense, which is then undermined by him bursting out of the tiny cupboard under the stairs.
Like Harry Potter. He is not the boy that lived underneath the stairs.
And at some point here, this is where his mask is psychically removed.
It's squeezed
Yeah.
to the point where some of his waterlog is oozing out, and then he turns around and it splits in half.
And this is where it threatens to go full Cronenberg with the brain bubbling.
Mm-hmm. But I would say that this is kind of a big swing, too, because he talks about it. The director talks about this moment in Camp Crystal Lake
Getting the
Memories.
mask
He
off.
said, I want to see the mask off. I want to see Jason. And
But
then a lot
but
of...
is he swing? But you know, is it a swing and a miss or a swing and a hit? Because you could equally argue that it's jumping the shark a little bit to see Jason's face for so long.
It doesn't bother me.
But the whole
I'm okay with it.
fair enough. But one could argue that that's like having Michael Myers with a mask,
No, yeah, I agree.
as kind of happens in the worst of those movies. We see far too much of his face.
Right.
I mean, it helps that it's what's his name, John Carl Buchler,
Yeah.
Trollman. It's like he started with the Toxic Avenger, and he was like, so how could this look respectable? And then he kind of turns it so it's like an upscale Toxic Avenger face.
Yes.
So it's not particularly like, it's not as, I would say, artful as what Tom Savini does with it.
Correct.
It's
No.
it's more like Universal Monster.
When he turns around and it does split and the camera zooms into his face, it is not as affecting as he thinks it is.
Right.
I'll say that.
It's well made, but it's not.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, it's pulpy in a way
Mhm.
that, you know, when you see Jason's face for a moment in, is it part 4? I think the one that Tom Savini, the face that Tom Savini made, or
Yeah.
at least worked on. I think someone else might have taken over from him. But he did them all.
I thought he was
anyway.
back. Anyway.
That might have been 3. I think he was around for some of 4, and he made the mold, and then an equally skilled makeup artist kind of picked up the thread. Anyway, that you're sort of taken aback by how real that looks. And
The one thing I remember he said about this one was he wanted everything that had ever happened to Jason to be present. So you see sort of the axe or knife that Corey Feldman with the whatever broke the mask in that movie that we see in the poster so that's there.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah, I think
he's
that's
trying to
detail
add
leads.
everything to it. And I do think that that's there.
I also think you could just cover Kane Hodder's face in mud, and it wouldn't be that different from this.
I agree. You're not wrong.
Mud and slime. So,
But I don't think seeing his head is a bad thing. We can talk about how good it looks,
okay.
but the idea of it, I'm okay with.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it particularly. I'm not particularly attached to the hockey mask either. To be, I like the the pillowcase as much as I do the hockey mask. So yeah, and then we get the Warder and the he's sort of his two enemies, Warder and Nails.
Yeah, right.
The fake Tubular Bells comes back in.
Right.
And am I right in thinking?
And then fire.
And then Crystal Lake Memories say that it's not Kane Hodder on fire now because he's the talent. But no, it was Kane Hodder. They did say
no, it was.
They that's right.
And
it was
they said they wanted to give him extra credit because he'd already burned himself once.
Right. Any other profession, you would think less of that person. Right? You know what I mean? Like, wait, you're gonna do that again? Do you remember what happened
What's the matter
last
with
time?
you?
But for some in stunt work, they get like a golf clap if they attempt it. Yeah. And here, I mean, this is where we get into the explosion moment.
So clearly,
now we got to talk
everybody's life
the
in
behind
danger.
the scenes of this is
behind the scenes. It was the mom, I believe. I forget her name, but whoever's playing mom.
Yeah.
Who said they had rigged this whole thing up, sticking every joint with dynamite and stuff, and then there's just a guy in the house smoking cigarettes. She said, "What the fuck? You guys are ready to explode this thing, and you're smoking?"
Mm.
So yeah, everybody's life was in danger, apparently all day on set.
And it was a premature explosion, so they barely got it on camera. They wanted to get it from more angles, and they could only really use one camera setup that they had going. And it was touch and go whether they were going to get that, because it blew up much bigger.
The explosion itself might have destroyed the camera.
Yeah, and it was a much bigger explosion than they had anticipated. And to me, it with that backstory, the choice to do it in the first place kind of made me think that here's the influence, and the fact that it's 1988 makes sense because it's the action movie.
Right.
Kind of the popularity of the action movie at this time is what prompted this amount of pyrotechnics. But
I still think it looks really good.
I think it's great. I mean, it's it's obviously excessive in that way that these moments in action movies
It's insane how big it is. Yeah, it's nuts.
But again, it's like we talked in Friday the 13th Part 4, that these lightning in a bottle moments. They're to do with acting, but this is the same. This is a lightning in a bottle moment. This is not...
Absolutely.
This is not a moment you would find in literally a lightning in a bottle moment. It's a fucking Molotov cocktail.
Yes. And that's the other part of it, is it's so big.
So big.
I revel in it and enjoy it, but it's so big that it takes me out of the movie for a moment. Totally. Because I do think my first thought is this was an accident. It wasn't supposed to be like this. How many people got hurt?
Yeah. You can see bits of Jabba flying at the screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a bits of Jabba moment.
Oh man.
And then
but somehow Jason lives through that.
Jason lives through that.
He's resilient.
Nick gets in the slow boat. So this is a trope of the series, that people waking up on the lake thinking they're saved before Jason jumps out. Or I guess there's a bit of an inversion of who jumps out here, but right. Normally it's Jason. Although they keep flipping it, don't they? It's like, wasn't it the final girl in one of them? Or it was Jason's mother? It was
Jason's mother was 3.
Jason's mother was 3, and isn't there, or is that yet to come? Where I think it's yet to come. Someone else comes out of the water. It's Freddy at one point for sure, who comes out of the water, who reenacts it. But anyway, we'll get there. But it's a trope of the series that we replay this moment with various different people.
Sure.
Just guest water jumpers.
Guest water murderers.
This week's guest water murderer, Paul Lynn.
Yeah. In the center square, water jumper Poland. I've seen this movie twice now.
Me too, I think.
And after watching it a second time, I watched Camp Crystal Lake Memories. I mean, they actually show Dad in the makeup, and so you lament all the more their intention versus what you end up getting. And then the story behind it about that.
What was their concern about
it wasn't a concern. It was a producer who hated this director.
Costs. Yeah.
And was trying to cut costs, didn't want, fought him tooth and nail about, I think, the reveal of his face, which was a battle. Like, she said, do not film that. And he filmed it anyway. And because he got his way on that, she would not let him have his way on this.
Yeah. And
so they had to bring the actor back and film him with just a dirty face.
Yeah.
What's amazing to me is it ends up, my note is, Tina brings her dad back as the guest murdering hero. Mm-hmm. The terror that was her life before somehow is the good guy. But my note is, so I guess they never recovered the body. The lake doesn't seem that deep. Once you hit the water in this lake, you're just there forever.
Well, this is why they built a research facility here, because this lake doesn't conform to the known physics of life and death.
Yes,
no,
exactly.
I'm with Cronenberg on this one. It's like, this is where we built this place. We got to find out
what the hell's going on.
It's interesting that they never make a thing of the water itself, do they?
Right. Yeah, they never try to answer that question. Maybe it's the water that's helping Jason.
Scientifically, you would go there, wouldn't you? After it's like, okay, so that dad came back, Jason came back. If it wasn't a dream, his mother came back.
Yeah.
Actually, all of this is contingent on these not being dreams. So maybe
not being dreams.
Maybe that's where the empiricism kind of leaves the debate. Yeah. It's a new. I appreciated it as a new spin on the jump scare of Jason coming out of the water.
Yeah, sure.
It
just doesn't. I know it doesn't play like that though. It's not.
Well, because he's too.
It's not shot in a way that is surprising. Yeah.
When you find out this is where Crystal Lake Memories, this is where it's helpful. It's like, oh, okay, now I know why he was clean.
Yeah.
But it's a bitter pill to swallow when you think he could have been in full Frog Boy makeup. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's another part of the movie that needs its own callback. Each movie needs a callback to this moment.
Yeah.
So they're still playing with that imagery, and also, I guess in the spirit of complicating the idea of life and death in the style and the spirit of the way the series has done it so far.
Mm-hmm.
Accepting what you're saying about why does no one ever drag bodies out of these lakes? How many bodies are down there that they haven't recovered?
Yeah.
And again, going back to what you were saying about this feeling like an extension of the front half rather than the beginning of the back half of the series.
Yes.
The being carted away on a stretcher. And I was like, this seems awfully familiar at this point. And then I was just like...
It seems more familiar to the Halloween series, though.
No, and there's a couple of movies that ends this way, and I think, is it part 2 or...
That's true. Part 5 has this, I think.
I think it's part 2 where we never find out what happens to the male...
Well, I think we start there, right?
Is it part 2 with the where's Steve? Or where, she says, is Steve okay? And we never find out if he's okay or not.
Oh, I don't remember.
Well, one of those movies, but at this point, it seems like they make a specific choice to tell you what happened to Nick. And if you think back to previous movies, they leave that ambiguous in the endings of some of the movie. I think it's part 2. Okay. I think she's kind of moaning and groaning on the stretcher, like, "Where's Steve? Where's Steve?" And no, we never find out. Or Mike, Steve or Mike. It's one of the two usually.
It's got to be one of them, right?
But we don't, the last time I think it was the last time we saw what happened to this character was probably a dream, so we have no idea what actually happened to them. And the movie just leaves it a mystery. This film, but here it's like, Nick's like, hello!
Yeah, right.
Which is another reason why he should have been an illusion. As he should have been a force projection of her imagination.
Is it him that says, "Where's Jason?"
Yeah.
And she's like, we took care of him.
Yeah. That's...
Wink, wink.
Yeah, and
my alcoholic, fear-mongering father took care of him.
Oh,
Yay.
Is that... Oh, okay, I didn't read it that way. I just found it unsatisfactory, but I guess we took care of him, like, Dad and I. Yeah, that makes sense. But there's no... It's weird that there's no lake shot. Like, the movie put him back there so we can reset next time, and another filmmaker can pick up all over again from the bottom of the lake. But we don't even go back to the bottom of the lake to show that he's there. We just see them, like, leaving. Driving away, right? That's the last we see of anything.
Yeah, that's all I see.
So that in itself is an inversion that we don't have a... Because even Jason Lives had the eye open... Jason's eye opening at the bottom of the lake into Alice Cooper. But this one it's just like, well, that's the end of the story.
Better filmmaker. Yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah, and I don't know, like, is that good or bad? I don't know. Like, it doesn't feel like what you should do for a Friday the 13th movie, but technically it might be better filmmaking just to kind of not rely on a last second jump scare. So I don't know.
Well,
but I called this a good movie, so I guess in the big scheme of things, it doesn't matter.
We both did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, credit check.
Yeah. So, they called
even though apparently all the credits were at the front of this movie.
Yeah, most of them. Well, I got some of it is hangover from that. This movie was produced by a group called Friday 4 Incorporated, which I'm sure is just a production company in its own right, but it does sound like they build a production company on the back of Friday the 13th Part 4, A New Begin.
Friday the 14th.
The final Friday. What's it called?
Now that's Part 2, Saturday the 14th.
Saturday the 14th. Friday the 13th Part 4.
A New Beginning. No. The final chapter.
The final chapter.
Everything to me is a new beginning.
The final chapter, and then it's the final Friday. Okay, got it. That was my confusion. I was like, that's got to be Jason Goes to Hell, Final Friday. But I'm sure there's another final in there somewhere. There's
another final in there somewhere.
They call what happens at the beginning of the movie a prologue, which is a fancy name for a trailer. And it's the same thing. We go back to what we said originally. It's like, when you do that, you have to credit every actor who is in those scenes. So
yeah,
it kind of looks like they're in your movie when they really aren't.
Right.
Construction painter Frank Costello, who I'm assuming is the same Frank Costello who was the boss of the Luciano crime family. Hiding behind one of his legitimate fronts as a construction painter. Yeah, I'm in the construction business. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
I construct you up the wazoo. Stunt coordinator Kane Hodder. Again, this...
this guy needs more credit.
Well, that, and also, like, we finally figured it out where the actor playing Jason can get star billing and not get lumped in with the rest of the stunt people. And then this just opens the same can of worms all over again by making him both the star of the movie and the stunt coordinator at the same time. Honey Wagon drivers David Walden Jr. and Sr. Now, this combines two of my favorite credits. Okay? Father and son duos. And the people who drive the shit truck. End of credit.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's it?
That's it, yeah. I don't think it was particularly long credits.
All right.
And as you say, most of them are at the beginning of the movie.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, all that's left is for you to tell us what you think of the first movie, of the back half of the Friday the 13th series. Good or bad? Top of your list? Where is it? It's funny talking about it with you. This movie even lowers a little bit in my estimation. But when I watch it, to me, it's still a pretty easy watch.
Yes, it is. It goes down very easy.
I think it goes down pretty well.
Like Jason in a lake. Goes down easy.
Yeah. So you got to tell us what you think. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Instagram. Do not find us on X, but go ahead and start a thread.
Yeah. That was the most fluid you've done that yet.
God.
This is where we find out that Threads is no more. Like,
Not what we think it is.
or it just doesn't exist
Whatsoever.
anymore. Like they abandon it.
Or you can go ahead and send that email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. That's it. The next time you hear us, we'll be talking Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here. I'm from the How Dare You Awards. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
I've been rejected by some of the finest science fiction magazines in the continental United States.
So like us.
Yep. That was my biggest note. I think this guy is us.
Go look. Come look at yourself in a mirror, nerd.
All right, everyone. We'll be back.